a really interesting aspect as somebody that has worked on other people's projects. Like you said, it's not your own project, so you kind of care a little less slightly because it's not your own thing. So it almost shows you how much we sometimes put too much pressure on our own projects. Like when I record for other people or something like that, or I've done it in the past, I'm like, yeah, let's do 3 or 4 vocal passes, and like that's all they had because they're not in the studio anymore. They can't do 16 passes, so we have to make it work, and the song ends up coming out great. And it's like, why do I make myself do 17 passes sometimes? You know what I mean? It's like it's really interesting. It teaches you like what really matters and what really doesn't, because like you let things slide for other people that you wouldn't let slide for yourself, and the song still comes out great. So it's like this interesting.
So much of that minutia. You're the only one that cares. You're the only one that knows. Yeah. And I've learned to be okay with that too. Every now and then I want to do this thing just for myself. But so much stuff, like if I work with Allie or somebody else, and I'm like, oh, what about this part? What about this part? Like, it sounds great. It's fine. Just stop worrying about it. It's fine.
But I think that mentality leads to longevity.
It does.
So I think that's why you've had a 21-year career where so many people, can't even say that. Like it's. I think that's a really interesting perspective that I think that most people get caught up in.
Yeah, for sure.
The creatives industries, you just got to keep one foot in front of the other, just keep going, and then, not putting too much pressure on the next thing you're doing and just enjoying the process of it.
Yeah, and I think in any field, especially in creative fields, imposter syndrome is such a thing. It's always there for everybody. And
can you elaborate on that?
Okay, yeah, sure. So, there's always going to be somebody more talented than you, always someone more pretty than you, someone smarter than you, whatever. And you're always comparing yourself to them. And that can have some amount of healthiness to it as far as these are the goals I'm striving towards. But a lot of it's very unhealthy in that it doesn't matter what someone else is doing. Like Kenny Rogers, we did some collaborations with him before he passed.
I heard this story about you guys with going to the Tonight Show.
Oh, yeah, that was a story. Let's not repeat that one. That was one of the moments that led to me leaving the band. It was just such a bad, awful experience.
Oh, man. Well, sorry to bring that one up.
Yeah, I mean, to recap, people that haven't heard it quickly, we were supposed to do the Tonight Show with Kenny Rogers, and our flight got canceled, delayed, weather, and we didn't get there in time. And we spent $15,000 trying to take a private jet to get there, and we still didn't make it in time. It was so depressing. And like for me, I felt like I don't want to care this much about this, and I had to, because it was because then we had cared so much, and we failed miserably in that experience. It was so depressing, and it started maybe reevaluating what am I doing and why am I doing it, and what Home Free is doing right now. So, side tangent on all that stuff.
But Kenny Rogers said,
"Oh yeah." So I remember that day in the Tonight Show backstage, we were talking with him, killing time, and he had said that when he was coming up, he was kind of competing with the likes of Johnny Cash and Hank Williams Jr. or Hank Williams and stuff. And he said, they were so good at what they did. I felt I couldn't do what they did. So I decided, don't do what they do. Just do what I do and just be Kenny Rogers, whatever that means. And it's a simple concept, but it's true versus, one of my contemporaries doing the solo acapella stuff is Peter Hollins. I don't know if you're familiar with him or not, but, he's been doing these solo acapella videos for so long. And it's easy to say, okay, well, what's Peter doing? What do I got to do? How's my comparing to that? Like, you don't. I'll do my thing. He does his thing. We can both have success. And if you sit there and compare yourself, then you start feeling like the imposter. Because then you're looking at, how successful I was I at this? What does that mean for me? Blah, blah, blah. And it's just a spiral that is not good to do.
Yeah.
So fighting that imposter syndrome is a constant. And I felt that too when I left Home Free, because I'm going off on my own after being under the umbrella of the band for so long, and that was my identity. And it was terrifying to do that and think like, well, am I actually good enough to do this? I don't know. Probably not, but I'm going to try anyway. And here we are 5 years later, and it's worked. Mm-hmm. That was a long ramble there.
No, it's so true, man. We get so caught up in the comparison, and the grass. The grass is always greener on the other side because you're stuck there with your own hose watering the other people's grass. You're staring over the fence, right?
I like that. Yeah.
It's so true though, and so many people to some degree that I was jealous of growing up with, even music or outside of music, their talent, their level of success, whatever the case is. I suck with my thing, doing my thing, trying not to. I mean, of course, I compared. I was 14 years old or whatever. Like, learning, looking back, like learning not to. This has helped me lead to not. Like, they're not even musicians anymore. One's an architect. One released one song. Like, and so it's like, why? Like, looking back, I'm like, well, yeah, it was such a waste of time for me to compare because like they're not even doing it anymore. Like, who cares? You know. So that's another thing too, is just staying in your own lane.
Oh yeah, I remember when I was 16, I was so depressed comparing myself to some of the other people in my class in high school, and how good Dan was at this and how good Sarah was at that. And like, oh, I can't compete with them. If I can't compete with them in my high school level, there's no way I'm going to be a successful musician.
Yeah.
And that voice is yelling at you all the time. It's tough to push through that. I mean, that's something I go back to my 16-year-old self and say, dude, no, you're fine. Don't worry about it. That what does not matter right now at 16. It does not matter. You know, if you want to do this, just do it. And the pieces will fall into place as they come along.
Yeah. And to Kenny Rogers' point, you know, there was enough room in the industry for him and Johnny Cash. And, you know, like there's enough industry for the Jacob Restitutos, the Chris Rupps, like we're not we are competing, but we're not. Like it's like you know, there's enough. Like of course it's competition, quote unquote, but it's not like, oh, if Chris gets his, I don't get mine. That's not how it works. You know,
we always laughed. I mean, I with Home Free, but also myself when the fans get very passionate defending someone they like, and like maybe we would do a cover of a song, and something has to be a comparison of what's better, the original or the cover, and they get so passionate about it. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, you can like them both. It's not a zero-sum game.
Oh, shoot. I completely understand. Oh, like a decent amount of stuff that I do on my channel is like, you know, they're called reaction videos, but like essentially as a musician myself, like I break them down. I say, oh, they're doing this chord progression, you know, the panning left and right, you hear that echo, right? All this stuff, right? So it's so funny when you're like, oh, she's saying it so much better than the original. I'm like, why do you have to put, like, it leaves such a bad taste in my mouth. Like, why you have to do that? Like, you putting down Adele to tell me that this artist is better. It's like, why do we do that? The comparison, it's not a competition. She's not in competition with Adele, you know? Like, it's just crazy.